We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow when we give.
Welcome to R.O.G, Return on Generosity, a podcast celebrating generosity at work. Not financial giving, giving valuable time, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration. Our special guest today is Genein Letford, a pioneer in the field of intercultural creativity and is a national award-winning educator, best-selling author, global speaker on creative and intercultural competencies. She's a veteran TEDx speaker, top creativity trainer. She inspires people to redevelop their creative abilities in order to produce inclusive ideas for the classroom and the workplace. Genein is certified in the Intercultural Development Inventory Assessment and delivers one-of-a-kind interactive trainings on intercultural creativity for organizations. She's the founder and chief creative officer of Cafe Intercreative Strategies, LLC, where she trains people to unleash their innovative thinking for themselves and their work while building an inclusive environment. What I appreciate most about you, Genein, is your commitment to teaching and making learning fun and impactful. We're so grateful to have you. Welcome to R.O.G.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much.
I'd love to start with a little of your background.
I felt like this is my mission. I was meant to be here. I started my career as an elementary school teacher in Southern California, taught third grade, and then ran the creative arts program, the music program, helped with the drama. And, we did dancing and all that, and taught at the university level at the same time. And also sat on a few boards. So, in 1 week, I was working with a 4-year-old all the way to a 64-year-old and everyone in between, different socioeconomic levels, different ages, different cultures and backgrounds. And it just really made me stand back and say, okay, what are the true skills that really increase a person's success? Not necessarily financial success, but just their success with flourishing, right? Which includes finances as well, but creatively, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, artistic health. And that really just brought me to where I am today. I left the classroom in 2019 with just this urge to talk about creative thinking. And then I saw the intersection between cultural competence and creative thinking, which we trademarked the term intercultural creativity. And then we're doing training on that. And then we merged into something called neurosomatic creativity to go with that. And that's just really better educating people about the brain, the mind, and the body. And just how can we embody our thinking to think more creatively in non-arts areas, and so one thing is just really defining that for people. Creativity isn't just artistry, it isn't just the arts, but it's your ability to problem find and problem solve with relevance, value, and novelty in any field, right? I don't care if you're a mechanic, if you're flying planes and everything. It's just we all have to really hone in on that skill now, especially in this future of work. And so here I am doing what I'm doing today.
Unbelievable. Oh my gosh, there's so much to learn from what you just said. So let's start with intercultural creativity, your trademark name. Tell us what that means and, what we need to know about it.
Well, I believe it's an idea that's met his time because we are so connected, right? We're connected around the globe, and, my grandmother couldn't talk to someone in France, in the next 10 seconds, but I can, so what does that really mean? But in brain science, we are learning so much about how the brain perceives and processes information. And so what I started to see was, if I, look at you and I'm looking at you through my cultural lenses, looking at my background, where I grew up, my gender, my social economic status, and all of I call it my diversity diamond, where we have all these different facets of how you can see the world. If I look at you through my cultural lenses, that may influence my perception of your creative ability, right? Or it may influence my perception of my own creative ability. If I look at someone else, I may have a different perception, or we call it, assumption or bias about their creative ability. So we really
Hmm.
looked at the intricacies of that, of how do our cultural lenses affect our creative output and the way we see ourselves. So that was the impetus of that work. And then educating people on how to mitigate that and be aware of it, especially people in leadership positions.
Right. Well, do you mind sharing how would we understand
Sure.
more about our prismatic leadership that you often talk about? Is this the same thing?
That's an offshoot, a more advanced level. I know I have a lot of trademarks. So I've trademarked intercultural creativity, neurosomatic creativity, prismatic leadership, and then our next venture. But it's connected. If we start with intercultural creativity first, right? That's just, um, the everyday person understanding their cultural lenses and how their lived experiences affect the way they observe just different phenomena. And so when people increase their awareness, and one major way is to get out and connect with people with different lived experiences.
Mm.
I just had a student, because I'm still in contact with my little elementary students. They're like in their 20s. A few of them are married,
Oh.
a few have babies and everything. But one just came back from Spain, and she was like, "Yes, Miss Lefford, I see my life here so differently," because she was in Spain for three months. And she's like, the stress is so much lower there. Their food is cleaner there. They take naps in the middle of the day, siesta.
Sign me
But
up.
it took her to leave the
Yes.
American culture to look at the American culture with a different lens, right? And that's why I highly recommend travel and connection with people from a different cultural background. And when I say culture, I don't just mean ethnicity and nationality. You can have a tech culture, right? You can have people who grew up in the same home, like my twin and I, right? There's four of us.
Mhm.
My twin sister, we're both, African American females, same parents, but she majored in astrophysics. I majored in like elementary ed and psychology, right? My brother works, is a mathematician at NASA. So even though we have the same culture, right, we perceive things differently because of how they were trained in
Yeah.
the education space, right? So
Mhm.
it's my job to enlighten people to say, whoa, okay, you and I are looking at the same piece of art or looking at the same social situations, but having completely different experiences and perceptions
Mhm.
of it. Great leaders are the ones who um who are aware of that, and they have things in place to modify their decision making and their perceptions. And so
Mhm.
one thing that people can do like right now, is look at stories. I tell people, go watch a documentary or go pick up a book to read that you would not have normally picked up, right? Someone from a different lived backgrounds. There's things now like meetups, right?
Mm.
Even the things, I have a podcast as well. Even what you're doing is expanding your brain's neural networks for different lived experiences. People who have their own
Mhm.
podcasts or listen to podcasts with people from different lived uh, experiences is key. And so, but I think this is a crucial time to be doing this work because the brain research has quickly caught up in the past, 10 years. And so now it's not just us talking about it, like Dr. Lisa Fieldman Barrett, she has a lot out on this and emotional regulation. Dr. David Eagleman over at Stanford, he talks about your great leaders are the ones who put themselves in situations where they have no idea like what to expect,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
the brain's a predicting machine. And that's why we
Mhm.
love to be around our tribe, people who look like us, to live like us, because we can predict what's going to happen. We can predict what they're going to say. But if I put myself in a situation or go travel where I don't know the systems, right, and the
Mhm.
traditions and the routines, now I'm asking my brain to work harder and to be more alert because I can't predict.
Excellent. I love this so much. So, what are the benefits of doing that? Like stretching yourself in that way, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, even just not necessarily uncomfortable, but expanding your awareness of how people live and act and what they enjoy. Yeah. What are the benefits of it?
There's so much. There's terms that are popping up big now called brain capital, right? And of course, brain health. That's a more known term. But brain capital includes brain health. It's brain skills, creativity, curiosity, adaptability, resilience, which is a big topic now, even with your topic, generosity, social connection, communication. So that's one part of brain capital. The other part of brain capital is brain health. And so, not just starving off things like certain dementias, like Alzheimer's, and things like cognitive decline, but how do we keep the brain flourishing throughout every phase of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to hit mainstream really big. I'm trying to be on that wave on the forefront, so I'm trying to publish books with
Yes,
brain
please.
capital in the title. My 6-year-old son and I published books together about this, so we'll be coming
Yes,
out with
I
some
want to
stuff.
talk about that too.
But Dr. R.O.G, who's a surgeon in Southern California, he's great at connecting to just regular folks, right? Yes. And he was just saying your brain, like its job is to think. It's a thinking machine. Its main
Mm-hmm.
job is to keep you alive. But after that, it's a thinking machine. And so when you're putting yourself in new situations with intention, right? For those of us, whether you're it's just you and friends or you and your family, like I put things on our calendar of, hey, we need 1 or 2 things a month to going to a place that we've never been before. When you have a little one, it's easier for them because they've only been here for 3 years. They've been on the earth for 5. But when you get into your 30s and 40s, and especially if you don't move around a lot, you basically seen your city of what you've seen. And
Yeah.
so we have to intentionally put ourselves in new spaces. And we took a pottery class. And with little ones, it's easier to say, hey, let's sign Sean, my son, up for a pottery class, or let's do this. But I texted my friend like, hey, do you want to go with me to a pottery class? My son's enrolled. Let's just do it. And so we have to step
Yeah,
back and say, it's easier for us to do it for them, but what am I doing for me? And
for
the
me.
brain actually not rewires, but just lays down new tracks when you're
Mm-hmm.
engaged in situations that you haven't been engaged for a long time or at all. So being intentional
Mm-hmm.
and asking yourself, when was the last time I did something for the first time?
Oh my gosh, what amazing advice. Everybody's got to think about that. And what is that for you? What would you find interesting? For some people, it might be going to an art museum. For other people, it might be hopping on a train and just exploring a new town or city. For other people, it might be about reading a book or a podcast or
Mm-hmm.
something, like just you're saying there's unlimited options of what you can do. You don't have to go to another country, although that would be wonderful if you get the opportunity to do so. And not just to see it and see the sights, but to expand your brain, right? Really
Mm-hmm.
investing in your brain. For those of you who are joining us audio only, one of the things that she is doing is holding up a model of a brain. So, Genein, tell me why you have that and what are some of the ways that you refer to it?
Well, it's hidden, right? It's hidden, so we don't think about it. We got really big on like heart health, in like the late 70s, 80s. We really figured out how the heart works and the other parts, but the brain has been a mystery. And so even if you see, sorry, I'm holding up more props, but now I'm holding up a plushy brain. And so I was just like, how do we get this mystery of an organ out so people can actually engage with it? We
Mm-hmm.
know this is important when you're in a kindergarten classroom, right? Because you want to be as concrete as possible when they're at that age. But you still have brains, you still want to see stuff, and that's why in my adult trainings I have Legos, and Vaughn has a Legos, one of our colleagues who works on curiosity. And that's just the brain loves to interact with things. Yes, you and I can think at a higher abstract level than my 6-year-old, but that doesn't mean we can't still be concrete and
Mm-hmm.
manipulate and use our hands and see different models and look at the cerebellum. And that's why, when I say you should be trying to walk, not should be, I don't like to should on people, but try to add movement in your
Yeah.
day, because your cerebellum is in charge of your balance, your movement.
Mm.
But they also found out that the cerebellum monitors the prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of your decision making, your imagination, your creativity. That's why when you get stuck on an idea, sometimes you just get up and walk around, or even go around the block and come back. Your brain's like, whoop. all right, I'm back there.
Clear.
Let's go.
Yeah.
But
Right.
there's a neurological reason for all of that. So if I can actually hold the brain and show you where your where your cerebellum is, your prefrontal
Yeah.
cortex, and different areas, your corpus callosum, which is strengthened when you move and with music and things like that. So we're
Huh.
really talking about that. And one other thing that people can do right now is be a visitor in your own city. I was doing a keynote or a workshop in at the Phoenix Convention Center, and I live in Phoenix. But those kiosks that have like magazines, welcome to Phoenix, visit Phoenix,
Yeah,
or
a little
whatever city you're
brochure.
in. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, grab a few of those, because I was like, oh, let me check out. There were
Yeah.
so many places in Phoenix that I have never seen. So I
I'm
was like, oh,
sure.
let
Yeah.
me grab this, let me grab that. And my son and I, we went to the fire museum and this and that.
Uh-huh.
But, you're not going to think about being a tourist in your own town
Right.
until you have a guest
Until
come
you have
in, right?
guests. Yeah,
But
exactly.
treat yourself as a guest in your own town, and you'll see your brain will thank you for it.
Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. So check me on this. When I talk about emotional intelligence, what I learned about it is that our first synapses come into the limbic system, which is where we feel, and then to the frontal lobe where we think. Is that true? Like, did we feel first?
There is a lot of research, and I love giving you, the researchers, so we can always check. Dr.
Yes.
Mary Helen Imarindo Yang out of USC, University of Southern California. She's doing a lot of research on emotion in the brain, emotion in learning, and something called transcendent thinking, right?
Mm.
And she has a wonderful talk on that, and I fully agree with it. Of course, she's done her
Sounds
trials and
brilliant. Yeah.
all that research, so it's there. But I do emotions first. We are emotional beings first, and then logical beings second. You can't learn if the brain doesn't know that it's a safe place to learn. The curiosity aspect is huge, and
Mm,
we're seeing that that's coming up in mental and emotional health,
mm,
cultural competency, and even things like food addiction. I was listening to
mm.
there's wonderful research out of the Center for Brain Health out of the University of Texas at Dallas. My son and I are now brain activists with them, and they're actually flying us out to during their Brain Health Week at the end of February. But uh, um, curiosity is huge, and it's going to blow up even more. And that's why I'm so excited for Yvonne and her work and her book, because we're finding that this is the driver in so many areas of growth, right?
Mhm.
And so sadly, and I will say this as a rep of K-12, we tend to educate our children out of their curiosity
Mm.
skill base, and we need to be very careful of that, because if you're putting adults into the workforce with low levels of curiosity, they're not going to have that internal drive, right? That internal
Mm.
motivation to seek and to not know what they don't know, right?
And do we do that, just to clarify, do we do that by saying that there's a right and a wrong, or that there's one way to
There,
do something? I mean, what are some of the ways that we unintentionally, pull creativity out of the learning experience?
yeah, a lot of it is unintentional. Some of it is intentional. If I have a classroom culture where the kids can't speak up, there's a lot of convergent thinking going on and not divergent thinking going on. They're both important and they're both needed, but
Mhm.
we tend to lead to the yes. So there's only one right answer, and it's at the back
Mm.
of the book. And if you don't do it this way, I've had so many of my students come to me. It was like, yeah, I had this way of doing it, but the teacher said, nope, do it this way if you want a 5 on this AP exam. And so we're training our kids that there's only one right way, and the teacher
Mm.
knows that way. And then we put them out in the real world, and there's no answer at the back of the book. There's not even a book. You just got to figure it out, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's a disservice to them, because they have
Yeah.
to be adaptable. They have to be able to take
Mm.
in data in real time and synthesize data and try this and quickly get feedback and try over there. And
Mm.
if they're not given that in the classroom,
Right.
then they're not going to have that ability. And that's another reason why we're advocating for artistic education at every
Mm.
stage of life, starting from prenatal to the last day on earth. The
Yeah.
brain benefits for music and dance and theater,
Mm.
and visual art are profound, and that's really our work now.
Incredible. And are you suggesting that we can be observers of those art forms or participants, or it's best if we're both?
I believe it has to be both.
Okay.
There's a great book out there for those and I love recommending books. So
Good.
it's called Your Brain on Art. Your Brain on Art. I don't know if you've heard that one by
No.
Dr. Ivy Ross and Dr. Susan Magnuson. It hit shelves last year and just took everyone by storm because there's so many of us who are just new. The arts are not extracurricular. The arts are not just if you have time, or if you
Yeah,
pass
it's
this class, you
essential.
get to go to music class.
Right.
It's now a justice issue because we're seeing that the brain that not only observes art but produces it and has exposure with it as early in the lifespan as possible literally looks different. It is structured differently. So your corpus callosum, which is this middle connecting part, I lived in Los Angeles, so I say, if you know the 405 and the 101 interchange, or just imagine whatever interchange where you live, right? That's
Right.
always bottled up.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if that was shrunk down to one lane each.
Mm.
Imagine the traffic, right? But when you engage yourself, right, and your child in music and in movement, the corpus callosum gets stronger and there's more pathways for your ideas, the neural conversation to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So my statement is, if I know this, and I've been singing to my son since he was in my womb, because don't forget, I taught music, so he just
Right.
was at music
Yeah.
class,
Oh, I know. Yes.
before he even took his first
He's got a
breath.
super highway up there.
Yeah. But the first thing the doctor said to me was, "Oh, he's so alert. And then the pediatrician said it. So I'm like, why do people keep saying that? But I have nothing to compare him to because he's my first and only child. But even people with other kids were like, "Oh, he's really alert and he was speaking very well." And so what I figured out was if we work on building their auditory system as soon as possible through music, because music overlaps the same structures as language. And music overlaps the same networks needed to read clearly and to hear sounds and to separate sounds. Everything you need to read clearly and along the right path. Music already has embedded in it. But that's a justice issue because now my son has started at -5 months, where some kids don't get it at all. And now we're talking about access.
Right.
Right. And so I
Right
think
on.
this next decade, you're going to see that. So now we're looking at leaders who have a music and arts background. Adam Grant talks about this in his book Originals, which is back there
Yep.
somewhere, and his new book that came out, Hidden Potential. How the brain is structured to see connections, to see parallels, to think metaphorically and symbolically.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that are embedded in the arts. So it's a justice issue that my son has access to this, but the kids down the street don't.
Right, because it's also an awareness issue. Like you said, it's not just decadent and something we do to for fun. It's critical to our brain development and to our awareness of the world and how we operate in it. I think this is really important. So for those who are listening and feeling regret or shame and thinking, "Oh my gosh, my children are grown and I didn't do any of this," or "I'm in my 50s, 60s, whatever, and I haven't really invested much in this." Am I hearing it's not too late?
Yes, and there's a wonderful quote. It's a Chinese proverb that I love because I do bring that up. Yeah, you can't rewind time, right?
Yeah.
You can't put the child back into the womb.
Yeah.
But I say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. And so, if you look up the book "Music as Mine" by Renee Fleming, it's a compilation of many essays of the neuroscientists and music neuroscientists and music therapists and dance therapists coming together and writing their wonderful mini essays. We're showing that, of course, if in a perfect world, the earlier you get started, the better. There's these critical periods between 0 and 5 and 0 and 12, right? If you're looking to be a pianist at Carnegie Hall, then yeah, you got to get started before 7 or 8, right? If that's not on your list of things to do, then we have to understand what music and movement does for the brain that wants to try to starve off Alzheimer's and other dementias. And
Mm-hmm.
they're using movement and dance and following the beat to help people with Parkinson's disease. And other, and cognitive decline and memory loss, because we saw that music is rooted in the brain deeply. That's why if you have someone who's dealing with memory loss or Alzheimer's, if you play songs from their youth or their teenage years, they just come alive, right?
Right.
We have case study after case study after case study. But my position is, why are we waiting till people have these
Right.
symptoms? Because
Issues.
don't
Right.
forget, Alzheimer's and some of these dementias start in the brain in your 30s. You just
Wow.
don't see the symptoms to your 60s or your
Mm,
70s, right?
right.
And so we're saying, why are we waiting?
Why wait?
Why can't we just, have this? People come together, people have diverse experiences, people have
Mm,
artistic experiences, because they
yeah.
do increase your ability to connect with people with different cultural backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
My son and I were singing French, and you asked, what's the new thing I'm trying to learn? We're picking a country every month, and we learn phrases from the country. We, of course, like, where is it on the map? And
Uh-huh.
then, in order to embody the experience, there's a lot of work coming out with embodied experiences, and our training are embodied experiences.
Mm,
Gone are the days of me lecturing at you for 2 hours, right? And you
right.
just passively, taking in information. That's why Vaughn and I really use active activities and exercises. But we want to embody the learning. So, we're
Mm,
learning about France, we're speaking French, we're reading about France, but we're also going to go eat French food. He
right.
had to read about
Yes.
escargots. Like, what is
Uh-huh.
that? And then one day, hopefully, he'll actually get to visit France. But it's like, how do I make the learning come alive off the page? It's one thing to read
Exactly.
about the Niagara Falls, but it's another thing to stand there and feel the mist and hear the thundering roar.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And what a great challenge for us to think about what's something we could do each month. Now we're start of the new year going into
Mhm.
2025. What is a way that we could expand our thinking and our experiences? And I love how you're doing it with Sean so that you have that bond also.
Mhm.
It's a multiplier because you're learning from your prism or your lens like you were describing to us, and then he's learning from his, and when you get to share what you're seeing, you inevitably see different things. Isn't that
Yes.
fascinating?
Yes, yes. And music and language are two of the most powerful things you can do for your brain. They're neural protective, from the words
Mm.
of Dr. Daniel Levitin, who has a great book out called I Heard There Was a Secret Chord, which talks about music and health. How does music
The
help us?
title is I heard there was a what?
A secret chord. I mean, that
Oh,
line from the song, I heard there was a
uh,
secret chord, right?
yes.
Yes. And so there's a lot of work coming out with music and health. But I'm trying to show just music and the art, all the arts of leadership.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The leaders in this next future of work are going to have you will not need an MBA. If you have your MBA, great. If you have your higher ed, great. But there's some other underlying factors there. We need to see you be able to dance metaphorically too. How do you dance through situations that are changing the next week out of the blue? How are
Mm-hmm.
you going to move?
Yeah.
Can you, salsa around this situation? Wow, that's a good one. I should
That's a
should
good one.
write
That's a
write that
good,
down.
yeah, that should be a title of a blog or something.
Yeah.
How would you teach people how to do that? I mean, for some of our listeners, they're listening to this and going, "Oh my goodness, like this sounds out of my league." You're making it feel attainable
Mhm.
and something that yes, we can do it. We're not talking about Dancing with the Stars. We're talking about embracing that inner ability, like that untapped potential, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
That hidden
how do we
potential
do this?
that Adam grants. So first of all, understand that you were built to do this, right? And there's actually an area in your brain that is only activated for music. So if you're not, engaging with music, there's a part of your brain that's just like just there, right? It's not. Um, and we were built to move. There's I think it's a sea squirt that once it finds its rock and it just stays there, it eats its brain because it doesn't need it. but
Well,
that
I
speaks to
don't do
us.
that.
Yeah. And so I think, and sadly, culture did this where we said, yeah, you shouldn't be singing unless you're professional. You shouldn't be dancing unless you're professional. Don't
Mhm.
submit any artwork unless you're professional. And we're trying to get back these rights because they're a human right to, if you have a beating heart, these belong to you. And
Mhm.
so what we can do, is first of all, sing every day, whatever song you like. There's different songs. Just sing every day. People are like, Janine, why are you so happy all the time? And my son's like, probably because she's singing all the time, right? Um, but I didn't know the neural effects that it had on me. I didn't know the level, how it affected my dopamine levels, how it affects my breathing, right? And I
Mhm.
have a speech impediment. I stutter and had speech therapy for the first part of my life. But for some
Wow.
reason, I don't stutter when I sing. Right. And
Right.
so
Right.
for me to get on stage and talk to thousands of people, there's things that I employ. You can move. Once again, you don't have to be professional. Just put on your song and move your body.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we're launching our Lyrics and Leadership Institute, which just brings this to the everyday person. Like here, and we use famous artists to teach this. Famous artists that everyone may have heard of. So we're
Sure.
launching that this month. Another thing is you can always sign up for a class. There's a lot of community classes, and make connections. If I want to connect this brain to my cell phone, okay, well, how are they alike? How are they
Mm.
different? What are the functions, right? So these are your metaphorical connections.
Right.
And practice, thinking metaphorically, walking in nature.
Mhm.
There's pine trees emit these chemicals for other pine trees to calm down their stress. But the one of the speeches over at the Center for Brain Health, one of the neuroscientists said, "Your brain has these receptors too." So that's why
Mm.
a lot of us feel calmer when we're walking in nature, especially around
Yes.
trees.
That makes
Like
sense.
we have the neural information to back this up. We just need to get it out to everyone and integrate it into our curriculum in K-12, so we
Mhm.
don't have to keep teaching it to adults, like and so
Mhm.
they just know this is the way I live. Emotional regulation is huge, but the
Mhm.
arts can support emotional regulation. One time I was upset with my husband for some reason. We had just a discussion. And I just excused myself and I went up and I just played my guitar for 10 minutes and I was like, I feel great now. All right, let's go back to life. It just shifted me,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, and so we have to understand that these are tools. Emotional
Right.
regulation is huge. If you can regulate, I
Mhm.
don't care how smart you are, I don't care how many degrees you have. If you cannot regulate your emotions
Mhm.
and have something called theory of mind, Dr. David Eagleman talks about that. He has a great video on that. If I can't understand my own emotions or work on the
Mm.
theory of mind of others, which is you kind of figuring out what other people may be thinking, what their motivations are, things like that,
Okay.
life is going to be hard.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And these are skills that I was an integration specialist when I was teaching. These are skills that I could easily have integrated and did. I did. But we
Yeah.
as a system, we
Mhm.
can easily integrate it in the curriculum,
Sure.
right?
It would be more enjoyable for the students as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And when you're talking about the phone and the brain, it made me think about the charging. Like, how do
Mm.
like we wouldn't think about our phone working for days on end without charging it, right? That just because
Ooh,
it just
see?
doesn't
That's
work like
good.
that.
That's good.
But we think that our brains should do that, right? So for
Mhm.
people that like pride themselves on working endless hours and getting up at the crack of dawn and all of that. And
Mhm.
one angle might be like they're very committed and responsible, but another angle might be that they're exhausting their resources and
Mhm.
it's like not reasonable to think that they could operate at a high level for that long without a break. I mean, what are your thoughts on the recharge component?
Yes, that's huge. We're the Center for Brain Health is they have this term called 2-5-7, right? Like
Okay.
try to have, and I love things that are chunkable because that's how
Me
our brain
too.
learns, right? So try to have 2 expansive thoughts a day. Like, what if, if this happened, or could I see myself educating, the entire continent? Like, how would that look like? Then the 5 is could I have 5 brain breaks a day? 5 brain breaks for 5 minutes, and that means you're sitting there. You're not having any data or information come in. You might go for a walk, things like that. You might just go and just move, or just a brain break, right?
Sure.
And that's huge because I love your metaphorical connection. We do need to recharge, and I believe their push this year at the Center of Brain Health in Dallas is sleep, right? And we have lost the importance of looking at how sleep is so important, because your
Yeah.
brain is not sleeping when you're sleeping. Your brain is like getting out the broom and the mop and clearing out toxins and trying to untangle these tangles. And
Mhm.
every night, my son and I were like, hey, how are we good to our brain today? And we have our squishy brain, and we talk about, did we eat our brain foods? Did we sing
Mhm.
or do music or dance? And did we meet any new people today? And
Yeah.
then how are we sleeping? Did you sleep? And every night. So I'm instilling this concept in a 6-year-old, so I don't have to try to fix it in a 36-year-old.
Right. Right. Oh, I know.
Yes, but like for some of your listeners, a lot of this is new, Sally. We didn't have it in our childhood,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
understanding the 7 pillars. Sean and I are doing that now, because we have to get this to the younger generation. They're saying the way to beat dementia and Alzheimer's is start with the kindergartners.
Mm.
Like dementia
Early.
prevention starts
Yeah.
in pre-K,
Mhm. Mhm. I believe it.
in the elementary school years. And so our 7 pillars are brain sleep, brain food. That's a huge one, because a lot of toxins are coming into us through our food and dyes, and even plastics, even water bottle plastics. There's a lot of research coming out like this month about that.
Mhm.
Let's see. Creative thinking, like how often do you think creatively, new ideas, social interactions. Isolation is very difficult for the brain. We need people, and if you can diversify that people, even
Even
better.
better.
But brain arts. It's
So
like,
good.
do you have enough arts in your life, where you're not just beholding art? Yes, go see it, go enjoy it, go watch dances, but are you creating art? And it
Mhm.
could be a dance break in your kitchen.
Sure. Yes. I'm all
And are
in.
you celebrating art? I heard of
Mhm.
a mom that her 7-year-old was painting, and so she just put them in frames, and she invited all her friends, and she put out crackers and everything, and her 7-year-old had an art show. But I was like, how ingenious is that?
So
Because
cute. Yeah.
you're telling your 7-year-old, this is important. You produce something from your imagination, and we shall
Right.
celebrate it. And what if the whole family did that? Like, these are
Amazing.
ideas that your
Yes.
listeners can do tomorrow.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. The really practical things.
Mhm.
And I'll put links to other resources like brain food in the show notes, because I know
Mhm.
there's like a lot of directions that we could go here. But I do want to talk about your book. You and your son, Sean, wrote a book called My Brain, My Brain, My Beautiful Brain. And I want to, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So please tell us
Yours
more
is
about
coming.
this book. Yeah.
Well, because I first left the classroom with this huge burden of saying, okay, how do I help America be more creative? And then I saw the cultural influences on creative thinking. And then I saw that Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett talks about that if your brain isn't healthy, because your brain's job is to keep you alive, right? Or is your
Mhm.
kidneys running well? Do you have enough, because it takes up a lot of energy. 3 pounds of your body weight, 20% of your metabolic costs. It's a very costly organ to run. And
Yeah.
so if our brain isn't healthy, who cares about creative? You can't think creatively, and you can't connect culturally,
Mhm.
because it takes extra energy to connect with people who don't have different lived experiences as you, or who don't identify as you, because now you're not in a predictive stance, right? You don't
Right.
know them. You don't know their traditions and everything. And so this book, The Brain, it just goes over the different lobes. And it just, let's see. My brain, my marvelous brain allows me to soar like a beautiful crane. Knowing how its parts work helps me understand why my brain keeps me growing past the limits of the sky. And so it goes over the parietal lobe, the frontal lobe, occipital lobe. So kids and parents, this is called an inner child's book. We don't call our book children's books, they're inner child books, because a lot of adults need this too.
Yes.
And then the last part of the book, it goes over the 8 multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner. Because another thing our school system we're trying to mend, I hope, is not just looking at intelligence as, did you get a perfect score on the SATs? Great, you're smart. The rest of you, go over there. You know? But what if you're musically intelligent, or you're kinesthetically intelligent, or you're able to make creative connect? You know, there's all these other types of intelligences that we don't really celebrate in the school system. And now we're finding, because of AI and machine learning, that it's switching. It is switching. If you got a 4.0 and a perfect score on the SATs, good for you. Who do I want on my team? Someone who's creative, someone who's adaptable, someone who knows how to respond under pressure, and someone who can emotionally regulate their responses to change. I really don't care what your GPA was, you know?
Yeah, that doesn't serve me right now. But your
No,
ability to manage this situation, ask the right questions, be curious. I do think that curiosity is the X factor in all of this. Because if you wondered and you thought, I wonder how we got to this, or I wonder what they were thinking, or I wonder how we could get out of this, or I wonder who we need, right? Like those questions that cause you to think beyond what you already know. First of all, it's a generous thing to do. It's a generous act to be curious, and it solves problems, right? It's productive and effective as well.
We wouldn't be here today with the things that we have if people weren't curious of how could we do this better, and curious about their own self. Well, why did I think that? Well, why did I come to that as some assumption? And generosity is huge. There's also Dr. Matthew Lieberman, who was my professor at UCLA. He has a wonderful talk on Google Talks, and he has a segment where he talks about generosity on the brain, and how it's good for the brain. And so when you can couple your exercises or your team building events with generous activities, it actually bonds groups, you know, together. Your neurochemicals that are needed to you know, just be calm and be connected, and oxytocin, they're there, and it adds the motivation. Right. And so when people knew at this phone bank, when people knew the output of their work, it helped them be more motivated with their job. And so generosity and neural generosity is like a thing now. You should trademark that.
Yes, I should totally trademark it. I'm looking it up. I'm going to study his work. That's amazing, because we know it's good for us. It makes sense. You've seen it in your own life. You know that that's like where joy comes from. You know that's how we can grow, right? But it's like sometimes we just need to back it up with science, because it helps to make the case for it. And it even makes it more exciting, right? Gratitude is the same way. I mean, all of these things that you just know are good for you and the world, like it has such a compounding effect that you think, how can we get the word out there? So what are some of the ways that you've seen generosity at work? And then I do have some rapid fire questions for you.
Yes, generosity at work. I love it when people see what no one else sees, right? Or people comment what, because we're all just going. We live in a very busy culture. But if someone, you know, stops and they're generous with a compliment, because don't forget, the brain loves if you compliment something, the brain is going to want to do that. So, you know, hey, I saw you, you know, pick up that trash over there when no one was looking. Thank you for keeping our space clean. And so, are we generous with our support and our encouragement, compliments? Where people are doing things that really support the group, but they're not doing it for a pat on the back, but you still notice those. So I think in leadership, we can be mindful of that. And
That's
are
incredible.
we generous with the hidden talents, right? What does it look like to see? And that's what prismatic leadership is about. When you go outside and you see the rain, you see the sunlight, you're surrounded by rainbows, but you can't see them unless you have a prism, right? And so great prismatic leaders are the ones who can see the gifts of red and yellow and green in their team members that other people can't see. And they can put them in situations where they can shine those different colors.
All right, so a couple rapid fire questions. You game for this?
Always.
Always. Okay. So you're talking about music. I always love to ask people about a favorite song. What's a song that you love?
Proud Mary is my go-to karaoke song, and I'm Tina, and my siblings are the Ikettes, and then my little
Rolling.
brother's Ike on the guitar.
Oh, that's awesome. You must crush that. Best or worst advice you've ever been given?
The best advice is, Janine, you can have it all or do it all. You just can't do it all and on the same day. So you gotta prioritize, and that's a
Yeah.
lot when you're a mom, you're a wife, and you're trying to build a huge business, and
Yeah.
learn and give.
Right. Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
priorities and pacing. That's really helpful. What
Mhm.
never fails to make you laugh?
Never fails to me. My son, and yeah, a good joke. Yeah, my son giving a good joke that he doesn't
Oh,
know
really?
it's a joke, but he
Yeah.
doesn't understand the double meaning of words sometimes, or
Uh-huh.
because he's still growing. But he'll just make a joke and he's just talking, and I was like, that is hilarious.
And
But
you're like,
and then we
you
we
are
talk about
funny.
why. Yeah.
Yeah. And does he sometimes not know why you're laughing?
Sometimes, so we have to make sure we're not laughing. He knows we're not laughing at him,
Oh,
but
for sure.
with him. But then we tell
Yeah.
it to him, and then he repeats the joke like 15,000 more times, and then we have to
Oh.
talk about habituation. Like the first few times, it's funny, but the 15th time, not in anymore, right?
Oh, that's awesome. So
Mhm.
as a lifelong learner, what is something that you're learning right now?
That I can develop curiosity. We have this wonderful book called Everything Under the Sun, and it has one curious question per day. That kids send in, like, why do zebras have stripes, and
Yeah.
and what language do just random questions. And I was like, I never thought of that. And so we have one curiosity question a day, but I love that because it's something you can develop.
Mm.
And you can be intentional about the development of that. So creativity, curiosity, and cultural competency, these are skills, and skills, just like throwing a basketball, can be developed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. What do you think is the key to a good life or great life?
The ability to have creative freedom and flourish with those you love, and to love those you may not think you may love, but to try to love them anyway. But
Ah,
flourishing. Yes,
flourishing.
flourishing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Oh
even if
my
you have
gosh.
tons of money and tons of stuff, if you're not able to creatively flourish,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're still in a jail. So,
Yes. And I just need our listeners to know that you had no awareness of these questions prior to
no.
this conversation. So this is just what flows out of your beautiful brain. So our last question, and this is a deep one, but how do you want to be remembered?
Abraham Lincoln said of the Emancipation Proclamation, if I'm going to be remembered, it's going to be for this, and my whole soul is in it. So if I'm going to be remembered, it's going to be for this intercultural creativity, lyrics, and leadership work, that I gave the world something that they know that they could fully live their life artistically, creatively, interculturally. And the books are here, the videos are here. And then when I'm gone, they're still here teaching because the
Mhm.
ideas are here. So that's what I want to be remembered for.
Oh my gosh, you are amazing. How can people find more about you? There'll be links in the show notes but for those who are
Mhm.
only catching us audio only, where can we
Well,
direct them?
my name is very uniquely spelled, Genein, so Genein Letford. But just, if you're looking for the research to back this up, just connect with me. I'm very active on social media, on LinkedIn, and we're sharing our lyrics and leadership. We're doing a course on the Super Bowl, the halftime show of Prince.
Oh.
Like, what are the leadership lessons from possibly the best Super Bowl halftime show ever recorded? But don't look at it just for entertainment. What can you actually learn
Mhm.
from how he pulled that off? Singing Purple Rain in the rain. What can we learn from that? It's a show, but it's also a leadership diamond mine. So that's what I do, is I
Yes.
turn their music and pull out the wisdom for us to have flourishing lives.
Yeah, so please check out the show notes so that you can follow her on all these platforms. You are a gift to the world. Thank you for sharing this precious time with us. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you so much. And if anyone needs any books, we'll share that. But your book is coming because my son and I, want to thank you for just being a light and everything and all the work that you do with getting this information out there. So thank you so much.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thanks for listening to R.O.G. Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.